Hello there, welcome to folkbuzz. Nepal and India has always been a great neighbor. If any two countries exist in the past that has the closest relation, then it's Nepal and India for sure. Considering its culture, tradition, language, major religion of the nation as well as for trade, the both countries share a common intersection. These two nations can be counted among those countries whose citizens don't need any kind of visas and passport to go from one nation to another to stay and even work. Meanwhile, we also can say that they share an open border of 1690 kilometers with each other, which is running between Nepal and India since 1816 after Treaty of Sugauli. But this friendship of kith and kin seems deeming in the recent days when the political map of India and political map of Nepal intersects certain region in Limpiyadhura, Lipulekh and Kalapani. When Indian government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi published its political map in October 31, 2019, Nepal denied the political map because Nepal claims that the published map includes the territory supposed to be of Nepal. This is when the reason of border dispute in recent days came forward. As the consequences of this newly published map by India, there was a huge protest conducted in Kathmandu by the civilian. Later in 8th May 2020, when the both countries were in COVID-19 lockdown, India inaugurated the Kailash-Mansarovar track without the prior notice or negotiation with the government of Nepal. And the Nepalese government raised this issue further by publishing the new political map of Nepal, including the Limpiyadhura, Lipulekh Pass and Kalapani region based on the historical evidences, artifacts and documents. This step of the Nepalese government is highly criticized by the Indian media, and the Indian media is claiming that this step of Nepalese government is highly pressurized by the Chinese government. The tension between these two countries in recent days is building up rapidly. Not only the government, but the civilians also have started passing the hate comments across the border. And I think this issue should be resolved very soon before it's too late for the remarkable historical friendship between these two nations. Before coming into the main topic, who is right, I would like to highlight you some of the historical data and events that exist between these neighboring nations. For this, I have to take you back to 1816. Before 1816, Nepal was a big nation. It was spread from Kangra Fort in the west till Tista River in the east, and also includes some region in the south which lies in modern-day India. This bigger Nepal is denoted by Greater Nepal. As the consequences of Anglo-Nepal War fought between East India Company and Nepal, Sugauli Sandhi or Treaty of Sugauli was held. This treaty was held between British government as East India Company and Rajguru Gajraj Mishra and Chandrasekhar Upadhyay for Nepalese government. In Article 5 of this Sugauli Treaty, western border of Nepal is denoted by Mahakali River, also known as Kali River. The Article 5 reads, "The Raja of Nepal renounces for himself, his heirs and successor all claims to or connection with the countries lying to the west of the river Kali, and engages never to have any concern with those countries or inhabitants thereof." After the Sugauli Treaty, the map of Nepal seems to be like this, including Limpiyadhura as its westernmost border. Later in 1860s, the map was published again by the Indian side, the then East India Company, which unfairly shifted the border towards Kalapani, showing the origination of the Kali River as Kalapani, but not Limpiyadhura. This map shows Lipulekh as a tri-junction between three countries, India, Nepal and China. There was no treaty done where both sides agree on this statement. During this time, Nepal has a RANA regime, an autocratic government. There was no response or very little objection from Nepal's side, probably because of weaker economy and unstable government. After that, Nepal and India both had been following the unofficial border until 1962, when the SINO-INDIAN War was fought. To highlight you about SINO-INDIAN War, it was the war fought between India and China in 1962 due to the disputed Himalayan border. At that time, Nepal was under monarchy led by King Mahendra. Since Nepal and India then was closely related and had a very good friendship, India asked King Mahendra to settle a temporary camp for Indian army in Kalapani for the war, which King Mahendra had no reason to deny for. They chose to build a camp in Kalapani because strategically it was better since it was at higher place and Indian army could easily inspect the Chinese movement. Later after the war, there was several requests by the Nepalese government to back out the Indian army camp from Kalapani region. But India forcefully stayed there and dismissed the request because Kalapani was strategically important for the protection of India. After that incident, Nepal had to go various internal governmental crises as well as change in system of government to panchayat, so it could not exert more pressure on Indian government. Later on, the Indian government published the Kalapani and Lipulekh region as a disputed region. Nepal had no ways to object that because of low economic condition as well as lack of skilled manpower to draw its own map. And here's a fact for you. Nepal was able to publish its own map only in 1975. Before that, Nepal used to draw a map with a reference map of India and China. Democracy came into Nepal very late, at 1919. After democracy came into Nepal, people had a lot of freedom to raise voice and look at the treaties and agreement previously done. After this, the claim for their disputed border became more frequent. In 2015, when India and China signed a contract for India-China Treaty for Trade and Track for Kailash-Mansarovar Yatra, which passes from Tri-Junction Lipulekh Pass, Nepal was not involved there. Due to this, Nepal protested this act between China and India. China responded to that protest and cleared its position, but India have been ignorant about this protest. There was no response from the side of India. Later in October 31st, 2019, when India published its new political map, it forcefully included the Kalapani region, which was declared as disputed region before. For this map, there was huge protest done in Kathmandu by the civilian. Also, the Nepalese government sent a letter of disapproval, calling for a diplomatic negotiation, but again India didn't respond. According to Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister of Nepal, Mr. Ishwar Pokhrel, Nepalese government sent 3 diplomatic notes calling for the meeting, but none of them were responded. The blockade that India imposed over Nepal in 2015, when Nepal drafted its first democratic constitution, was already enough to hate Indian government, and this ignorant act of the Indian government added more hatred towards India among the Nepalese people. Also, the friendship of India and Nepal was already a matter of question. Later this year in 2020, when Nepal again asked for the diplomatic negotiation with India, Indian government responded to have a meeting only after COVID is over. But few days after this statement was given, on 8th May 2020, the Defense Minister of India, Rajnath Singh, inaugurated the Kailash-Mansarovar track from Kalapani region, which brought huge protests in Nepal among the civilian and government in ruling party as well as in opposition party. Nepalese government showed the disapproval regarding this inaugurated track, but India responded that the track passes through the territory of India. Soon after, the ignorant behavior of India compelled Nepal to publish its new political map, including Limpiyadhura, Lipulekh and Kalapani, stating that this would be a base to negotiate on. This act of Nepalese government could not be ignored in India, and there was a huge dispute occurred. Indian media as well as Indian Army chief came forward to give a statement that this step of Nepal is highly influenced by the Chinese government, whereas Nepalese officials object that statement and claims that This was only based on the historical and documented proofs and evidences they possess, and not by the influence from third party. This is the history between Nepal and India border dispute. Who do you think is right? Please write in the comment section down below. If I have to decide on who is right, I would say the both. And if I have to pick the wrong ones, I would pick the both again. Say how? Listen. When Nepal published its new political map, it included the region of Limpiyadhura, taking Sugauli Treaty of 1816 as the reference. But when the British India published its new map in 1860, stating Kalapani as the source of Kali River, there was no any objection from the Nepalese side. Even Nepalese government drew its map later, taking reference with the British India map published in 1860, which shows acceptance of the map of a kind. But in my personal opinion, Nepal rightfully belonged the area of Kalapani and Lipulekh, which India forcefully took it away. It's because that during SINO-INDIA war in 1962, India asked King Mahendra, the then king of Nepal, to build a camp in Kalapani for Indian army because of its strategical importance. But when the war ended, King Mahendra asked them to leave the region, but India didn't back out their camp. The unstable government of Nepal and stronger military power of India became the reason to not leave the camp. Also, India took advantage of very rural area of Nepal that the government of Nepal could hardly reach. Later on, when Nepal was struggling for the democracy, India wrongfully called this region as disputed region and included forcefully in its new political map of India. As I see the sequence of activities of India over Nepal, I perceive that India is playing a fishy game with Nepal. India should have included Nepal during the construction of Kailash-Mansarovar track, as well as the inclusion of Kalapani region in their new political map was quite unfair. But there is a big question being raised. Why is India not responding to Nepal's request for diplomatic negotiation? Does India have no proof to validate their activities? More on the next episode. Thank you. Hi there! Before you leave, we have a lot of videos that might interest you. Either click on the left or the right video or subscribe to our channel for more future updates.